Yes, I want to investigate it. I thought I was very clear about that.
Dr. Fauci, you brought him up and how he's flip-flopping. Would you want him to be fired?
I think the question comes from fundamental. In that position, you need the trust of the American people. If the American people do not trust you, if you've taken numerous positions, I think it's the right time to replace. Think about if 600,000 Americans have died. The economic disaster that has come to the country by it, the millions of children who have been out of school, the flipping of positions time and again. I think at this moment in time, a replacement to bring the nation together in the highest paying job in the nation would be appropriate. Yes. Yes.
On infrastructure, there's these bipartisan negotiations going on in the Senate. Have you been briefed at all by Republicans in that bipartisan group in the Senate on where those negotiations stand? And Democrats also are saying that they want a bipartisan bill and a reconciliation budget resolution to come up in July. What do you make of that timeline on infrastructure?
Look, Republicans, I've sat with the president. I've talked to the Republicans on the Senate side as well and to Democrats. And I told the president very clearly, we would like to have a bipartisan infrastructure bill. But the first thing we need to do, instead of talking about how much money you would spend, define what infrastructure is. Roads, bridges, highways, broadband, electric cars. We can do all that. We also need to reform NEPA so we don't wait a decade to build the roads and bridges that have the desire to be fixed right now. We could figure out what the need of the nation is. That will determine how much we could spend. Unfortunately, we haven't got to that point. But I will tell you as the Republican leader, this is what our desire is, and this is what we would work for. We will work with anyone that wants to work in that nature of finding a bipartisan solution to our infrastructure challenge. But I was also very clear with the president as well. We are not interested in raising taxes on the American public. We've watched what has happened in these first 5 months, from a border that's massively open to inflation we haven't seen in decades. That is a tax on every single American, and it's disproportionately on those of the lowest income. Then we've watched exactly businesses that have been crippled because of COVID and what China has done to us on this virus, that government is now competing with them and making it more difficult for people to get back to work. But unfortunately, this administration begins to deny that. The last thing you'd want to do, any economist would tell you this, with inflation rising, to make government fund things that are not infrastructure. That would be detrimental to us as well, even raising inflation more. That's why the Democrats were wrong when they passed their first big partisan-only bill that only 9% went to COVID. It actually increased inflation in America and has harmed people and actually raised the cost for everybody no matter what they're doing. Yes, sir.
Sir, it appears the Speaker is poised to announce a select committee on January 6th. I'm curious your thoughts on that, and given some of the comments that some Republicans have been making over the last couple of weeks about questioning if the FBI was involved on January 6th, and liking it to tourists, and reports that one of your members wouldn't shake the hand of Officer Pannone. I'm curious if you would have been able to get in touch with him. Would you meet with him? He told us yesterday that he still wanted to talk to you, particularly based on some of the things your members are saying and how they voted on the commendation.
I would gladly meet with him, and as I said before, when he called the office, he called over my office across the way. We gave him the phone number to the schedule and said we'd love to meet with you, and unfortunately he hasn't followed up. Well, gladly, but we'd love to schedule some. As I said before, I'd love to follow with them. When it comes to what happened on January 6th, we want to get to the bottom of that. It's disgusting what transpired that day. We've said from the very beginning. The FBI, the hundreds of arrests, I want to make sure nothing that happens here gets in the way of that. We want them to do their work. The majority of the American public believe that as well. Unfortunately, the Speaker has always played politics with this, time and again. She's never once talked to me about it. She hasn't followed up, and I've sent her numerous letters, tried to discuss with her. She did not want to talk to me about it. The secondly is, in the Senate, they've actually had bipartisan committees working on this. Now we have a report back. We've also have the architect of the Capitol, where we've given $10 million for them to actually take the information and make the building more protective. Now, I don't know what the Speaker is going to do. I'm sure it'll be political because that's the whole way that she's handled it. Unfortunately, On the Senate side, they showed how to do bipartisanship. The FBI should continue to be able to go and do their work, and that's what we should continue to move forward. Yes, I haven't talked to those members. I don't know. I have real concern, though, especially the scope of where we're going to go. I know just the other day we provided a medal to the officer who was killed on Good Friday, killed because of political purposes, right outside that Capitol. But unfortunately, the Speaker does not believe that officer's life is as valued as the others. That for some reason we could not get to the bottom of why that transpired as well. I believe any indication of that. Why did this occur? Just like in 9/11, they didn't just study just what happened on 9/11, they studied what built up to it. So why wouldn't we study what built up in the summer? Why wouldn't we analyze and get to the bottom of why the National Guard were not here? Did things that happened in the summer prevent people from bringing the National Guard here earlier? Did the Speaker make some comments in regards to that? I think those are the things that all should come forward. I like what the Senate has done on a bipartisan basis. Yes, sir.
McCarthy, how exactly would Republicans hold China accountable? Are we talking about more sanctions? Would you encourage U.S. companies like Walmart not to sell cheap Chinese goods? What exactly are we talking about in terms of holding China accountable?
Did you come late? Let me walk this through again, but I appreciate the question because it's helpful. We have 8 pillars, and we'll build off these pillars. The first thing we're going to do to hold China accountable is declassify the intelligence information so the entire world knows. So it's not just America. And the basis should be, since the world suffered completely with deaths in every nation, we should all know the same information. We should stop gain of function with China so it never repeats again. Other nations should know that too, so they stop as well. We should prohibit NIH from funding even into other bad countries. Think about Iran, North Korea, what they would do with any of these grants or others. We need to overhaul the World Health Organization. That just didn't harm America, that harmed the entire world by lying in the process with China's control of it. We need to restrict the visas. And yes, we need to impose sanctions so they feel the pain of what they have done. If someone made a mistake, wouldn't you want to tell them if it's going to cause this much damage to the rest of the world? But to stop domestic flights because they wanted to protect their own, but allow international flights so you spread it others to try to give the falsity of where it created? I think if you look at the WTO, they have special treatment based upon where China was decades ago, where they get special interest rates and others. I don't believe that should maintain itself. I think what Mr. Crenshaw talked about, they should be held to justice in our courts, that anyone can bring it forward. And I think by doing all this, especially on an international stage, should the world reward them with the Winter Olympics? Or should that be moved? I think the world should stand together and say that we will not put up with this. We will not allow you to kill millions of people around the world and lie about where it started and actually hoard at the time the medical equipment while other nations were in jeopardy. And then I think we should look at our supply chain. I've watched time and again in the middle when COVID started, the control that China had over the supply chain. We should redirect that with America. We should look at our critical minerals and others. We should also work with our allies to build our own supply chain, to make sure it doesn't continue to have the control that China desires. I watched China during this crisis use the crisis on other nations to force them, if they wanted the medical equipment, that they'd have to accept Huawei. Then I'm watching what they're trying to do now with a vaccine that doesn't work like an American vaccine in other nations as well, to use that influence to let China have greater control. So it's not just business. It's really talking about the next century. And your question goes to a much bigger question. What will the Democrats allow to come to the floor? Why will they not even allow a hearing? How many more Americans have to die? How much more suffering? How many more millions of children that haven't been in school are economically devastated? How many small businesses that will never restart? Why would they hold back? Why wouldn't they bring these bills forward or add to it? I welcome the addition of more ideas. But at the end of the day, let's have one approach so this never happens again and that China does not benefit from killing millions of people around the world. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.